So good, Thomas. Tell us all about your practice.
Okay, what I've been doing is during the meditation at first, I take some deep breaths and I start generating wholesome thoughts, like a bit like in a like bombarding myself with them, like to clear things up. And then when the mind is more, when I start getting happier and with a more positive mood, I start pushing those thoughts less and just following more the breath. And what I've been doing is when some thought comes up, if it's unwholesome, I try to then put a wholesome thought in its place. And if it's wholesome, I just, well, let it be there. But yeah, okay, like no big deal. So and it's been a huge difference from what I've been doing in the past, because I I've it's been surprising to me how I can be happier doing that than how I was in the past. I started, and my difficulty is, well, first of all, I don't know if it's right to shift as I get more happy and relaxed, to shift to more the breath and less creating the thoughts myself. And also sometimes I have the issue that I get physically tense for some reason. So, and when I get physically tense, it's like, yeah, I can still have wholesome thoughts, but like they lose a little bit of edge. It's like more, I can feel some edginess there, something doesn't seem quite right. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So the first thing that I would have to say is um, that doubt. You spoke of that you were doing okay, and then some doubts came into your mind. The doubt about how to practice, the
Hmm.
doubt about should I do this now or should I do that now.
Hmm.
And then those doubts, you're actually, you can link these things together. People have before that those kind of doubts can become worries. Those worries can then take the edge off of our practice, and then we regret, etc., like that. So,
Hmm.
in fact, you can see that these doubts are a hindrance, and that you already know enough about how to practice correctly, and that is actually quite simple. There's not much to it. We just have to keep practicing doing that.
Hmm.
And yet, the human mind, especially trained in the West, is we're always looking for more, more and more and more and more and more, rather than settling down to this present moment to literally stop. That by wanting more, we're always kind of living in the future, getting pushed to the future from the past. And so what we're doing now is we're actually getting into the present moment. And with that, there really is no more. This is it.
Hmm.
And beginning to understand that we've arrived at where we were going to go all our lives. We were in a hurry and driven to get someplace. And now we can actually get someplace by getting nowhere at all. Okay, so I'll offer you the story about the Pilgrim's Progress. It's an old book from the
Hmm.
Middle Ages, from the time when people would go on pilgrimages and they would go all the way from Europe to the Middle East, and then they would go from one holy site to the next to the next. Now, here's the point about Pilgrim's Progress: is that the progress is always getting somewhere.
Hmm.
What happened when the pilgrim actually arrives at the holy place? He's no longer a pilgrim. He's one who has been at home. But most people don't. They stay a pilgrim, and so they say, I'm leaving this holy place and spending most of my time on the journey to the next holy place, but when I get there, I won't spend much time there. I'll be back on the journey. Okay? And so we get into that mentality of being on a journey, which is quite um, let us say it's so deeply ingrained that it's hard to recognize it sometimes, of whether we can recognize it. We can stop that journey and be at rest right where we are right now. That's a kind of a skill that we don't have.
Mhm.
Okay, that in fact we can be in that holy place. And if you are in fact in a holy place, then why would you want to leave? You already gotten where you're wanting to go. You've already arrived. And
Mhm.
there's so many places where we can hear that. One is that the Zen master will tell the Zen student, you're already enlightened. Just sit. There's no place to go and nothing to do. Just enjoy the fact that you've got no place to go and nothing to do, and everything is really cool right now. That in fact, that everything is really cool right now is going in the direction of nibbana. But we have to start with cool and let it really cool, as opposed to grow cold. There's just
Mhm.
something cool about nibbana, at rest. Everything is just chill. So, um, it's quite natural for you to start practicing correctly and getting someplace and then wanting more. Everybody
Yeah.
does that. And so now that we're beginning to get someplace, take credit for that, that this is okay. This is good enough. I am, in fact, satisfied. Wow, what a beautiful moment this is. Or you could even go so far way out there as everything is going my way.
Hmm. I
That's
have sorry. I have experience too, because I wanted to tell you what has been really effective, has been to do that during the day, not during meditation. When I've been during the day, when I started to feel like just the slightest like small worry or something, just boom, no more worry, get out. And at first I thought, well, yeah, that may work for small worries, but not for big ones. But I've noticed that less big ones come if you don't allow them to come when they are small. So that has been a difference. I've noticed. Well, I'm actually being more calm these days, and it's been really
okay.
good.
All right. Well, let's talk about big versus small, because how big the worry is also your choice, your decision, that we choose what we want to be important. There is actually very few things that are actually important. Let me name one for you. Being alive,
Hmm,
okay? If that's not important to you, then how about being dead? Because that
hmm,
sounds equally
hmm,
inviting, all right?
hmm,
But
hmm,
if we are in fact dead, then for sure nothing else means anything. And so if we can begin to understand then that nothing is really important other than being alive and taking this next breath with celebration is celebrating the fact that we're still alive. This is it. Here we are. We made it. We can breathe.
hmm, hmm,
Okay? And we can bring that enthusiasm to the moment. Wow, this really is good. This is a paradise that we live in. It's all a matter of attitude.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so understanding that we live in a paradise and everything is already okay, now we can relax. It's when we think something's wrong, thinking broken, things are dangerous, etc., like that. And we were raised on that mentality. Things are wrong, things are broken, things are dangerous, and I'm a victim to all of
Hmm,
those things.
hmm, 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 hmm,
But now we're beginning to get the attitude of those things don't matter squat to me. I'm the champion here.
hmm,
Let
hmm,
it
hmm.
all go to hell. That's all right. I'll watch it. I'll watch the parade.
Yes. Yes.
And so we develop that attitude based upon the wholesome thoughts that we keep giving ourselves that I can handle this. This is okay.
Mhm.
And to congratulate ourselves when we find that we can handle things quite well. Yeah, we could do this. We don't have to leave this holy place in order to go to some other holy place. This holy place will do.
Mhm.
And so we become kind of contented and satisfied. And knowing that you could feel contented and satisfied anytime you want to also brings on that feeling of success, the feeling of real power, the power to be safe and secure, settled, stable, satisfied, and it don't matter what kind of storm comes by, because it's not the storm that makes me stormy.
Yeah, the difficult part is to remember to that you can. I heard you say that in with talks with to other students, and you are very right that the difficult part is to remember that, yeah, it's not, I'm not a victim, and I can actually do that if I remember that I can.
Yes, and we can remember often if we practice often. That all of the teachings of the Buddha, what makes it difficult for so many generations of people is the quality that you have to keep repeating it. You can't get it and think you've got it. No, you got to keep building it. You got to keep making it. You got to keep going at it. That we can't say what's next, because what next means that, well, what about right now? Let's come back to right now. Let's not look for what's next. And come back to everything is okay, everything is fine, just right now, everything is all right. And if we can develop that attitude and practice it over and over again, it now becomes the new habit. We can begin to get the habit of, you got this. And so you can handle any problem. Whatever the world gives you as a problem, it's just a toy to play with. That you can finish with even your regrets. Ah, that's just a toy. That's not who I am anymore. That's something out of the past. Let's just drop that and
It
behave well
doesn't.
in this present moment.
It doesn't even exist anymore. It's not. It's not like still that's comes to me, because yeah, I sometimes have the like the feeling that, yeah, this comes to me from the past. That, well, it's, yeah, it's true that it's actually me who is bringing it to the mind from it's not there anymore. It's done over. But yeah, I sometimes choose to, well, let's let's have a bad time by thinking about it. Yeah, I don't have to do that. Yes, yes, yes. As long as I remember. Yes, yes.
So this is the practice. We just keep practicing this over and over and over again, and let it build up. Something like an avalanche starts with just one snowball, and as it's rolling down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually the whole ice thing falls away. So this is how we start practicing. But that snowball has to be a snowball's worth of satisfaction, a snowball's worth of being cool. That's where it starts, is everything is all right. And so when you're asking the question, what's next, where's the satisfaction in that?
Yeah, yeah.
That in
Curiosity.
fact, when we ask that question, that's going to bring on the doubt, because now by asking such a question as that, we wind up now beginning to search for an answer. We get restless. We get agitated, as if that question were important. And in fact, no, that question couldn't possibly be important. But we think because we ask it, now we've got to have an important answer to such an important question. And the reality is that no, you're alive. You're breathing now. Pay attention to that. If you want to pay attention to something important, pay attention to being alive right now. Being in your sensory awareness and being full of life, full of vim, vigor, vitality, that kind of stuff. You know, that's the way to be alive if you want to do something important. Those kind of questions about what to do next wind up not being important at all.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that, I think. Uh, I have a question too. It's not about what to do next. It's but very often I think there's a type of difficulty that I still don't really know how to deal with, because often during meditation or outside of meditation, I feel really tired. I feel yeah, sleepy, tired, and yeah, I've noticed if I try to overcome that by force, it's worse. It's then I get mad because, oh no, why am I tired? So that I know that can't be the way to do it. But if I don't do anything about it, I fall asleep. So that depending on the moment, I guess. If it's at night, no problem. But that can't be the. It's not every day. It's not that I'm constantly tired. But when that happens, I don't really know how to approach it. What's the right thing to do?
Okay. You're talking about the hindrance of what's called sloth and torpor.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about. Okay. Almost always that kind of stuff, especially in the sense of the mind getting tired, is because either we're not feeding it well or we're working it too hard.
Hmm.
And both of those kind of things happen with meditators. Working too hard, trying to figure out what's next, will make you
Hmm.
tired.
Hmm.
But being in the present moment and being satisfied and, oh, wow, things are so nice, that's not actually very tiring at all. And that people do get tired in practices that they put in a lot of effort for, um, including the Mahasi method. That requires people to put in a lot of effort. And so uh, the other possibility is that we're not breathing well, that the mind would not necessarily be tired if it were well oxygenated. And then, in fact, the whole body
Hmm.
being tired.
Hmm.
Imagine that you were doing some strenuous
Hmm.
exercise, okay? And what happens after we do strenuous exercise? Let's say that we just had a fight with a gorilla or a bear or a crocodile or our boss or something like
Hmm.
that. And we feel really tired. Why is that? That in fact the cold blooded animals wear out really quickly. That in fact that's why I've watched that and understood that the mongoose keeps wanting the snake to strike.
Hmm.
Why? Because the snake will get tired and then the mongoose can jump on him.
Hmm.
But if the mongoose jumps too soon or gets the wrong thing, then the snake's going to bite him because the snake's not tired yet, right?
Hmm.
So us warm-blooded animals don't get tired as fast as cold-blooded animals. All right. But the question is also look at the various ways that the body will build up a lot of let us say carbon dioxide because we're putting a lot of activity in it right after eating a meal.
Hmm. Yes.
All the blood's in the stomach. They recommend don't go swimming when you after you've been eating or
Yeah.
been eating or you might get eaten. So um, also, we recognize that the mind, when it's fully working and functioning, requires an awful lot of um, um, oxygen. It does. All right. And that if we can get people emotional, like getting them angry, they can't think straight. Why is that? Because all the blood's now circulating in the body with adrenaline and whatnot for fight and flight
Yeah.
mechanism, and it's not there in the brain. So you could get people all confused and bumbled, and they'll get really angry at you because
Hmm.
they're all confused and can't think straight. Right. So knowing this is very helpful for what we can do about it in our practice because always the answer is to get more air, to get more oxygen. So let's do this healing process of getting the tiredness out of the body, and that the one of the things that's most important is getting the carbon dioxide out of the bloodstream is a little bit more important than getting new oxygen in.
Hmm.
Which means then that getting the out breath operating and going correctly. is what. And then, in fact, this is also even known in some movies and in martial arts that this big exhale, like in the karate or the dojo,
Yeah.
that ha, that just throwing all of that air out. Okay, this is part of the practice then of that exhale, and that we can use it with the long breath in the sense of a big, long, easy-going, but very wholesome, healthy sigh. And we do that again. And all of a sudden, we almost within a couple of breaths, we feel more alert, we feel tingly alive. And so that alone right there will wake you up. The next thing is that if it's a little bit warm or hot or whatever, then getting cooled off. That one of the tricks of meditators in Thailand is that they'll bring a bottle of water and a washcloth of some kind.
Hmm.
And with that cloth, or just pour the water on your hand and wash your face, wash your arms. That helps to change the temperature of the skin as well as help waking you up. Even rubbing without the water is good. Because why? Because it actually uh, brings up the sensation of the arms. You can feel it, the tingling and all of that by rubbing your arms like this. This is actually in the sutras.
I've
Standing
never
up.
heard about that.
Okay, so rubbing your face, rubbing your arms, taking a deep breath, taking several deep breaths. This is what will help that drowsiness, as well as refocusing because you're probably drowsy because you've been working too hard at something. So that's the two sides of this coin. So let's come back and do something easy peasy while we're getting plenty of oxygen and plenty of release of the carbon dioxide. That in fact, the brain works this way with brain chemistry is that there is mechanisms deep in the brain that can tell the pH level of the blood. Not that it's got a little meter or dial or something that a human's
Yeah.
eye can read, but the human inside can read this. And that's where some of the tiredness is kicked in, is because the carbon dioxide level is too high now. And this is, in fact, why we yawn. That's the yawn reflex is exactly what I'm talking about. Is when they're not getting. And so if you're having a conversation with somebody and he yawns, you know he's not paying much attention. He's not listening. He's worried, thinking, and spinning his mind to the point that he's run out of oxygen.
Yeah.
So that's what yawning is all about. So that means that we can take advantage of that and intentionally yawn and get that deep in breath and the release. So this is what Anapanasati is all about: is incorporating the breath with the intention and going in the direction of the knowledge of the body and the release of the tensions of the body, making the body into a state of being relaxed, easy going. Everything is okay. That this is, in fact, the body component of the Satipatthana. The point of it is being relaxed. Okay. But
The
in
breath.
Vedana, that's also true. In fact, the whole Satipatthana is all about relaxing, coming out of unwholesome into wholesome, settling down, cooling off, relax, stable. And now we can really see what's going on is because the mind's gotten really stable. Go ahead.
The breath should feel easy, right? If you make it longer or deeper than you usually would, it should still feel easy, not very forced or.
I have heard students say that it's tiring to take long breaths, and the answer to that is that's because you're working at it. Take the work out of it. This is supposed to be easy peasy. So let it be easy peasy. Let each breath be worthwhile taking in
Okay.
a sort of a business like cost benefit analysis. You know, we weigh it. Is this worth doing or not? We can do that to every moment and wind up. That's all there is to do, is to weigh
Hmm.
out this moment, dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, which is the easy path. What's the easy way out? Let's take that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
life
Hmm.
becomes really easy, moment by moment, as we keep taking the easy way out.
Hmm.
And so, doubt about is this the easy way out or what? That's too much work because we just naturally know what's the easy way out. We
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah. By definition, in this case.
Exactly. So this is how we begin to practice, is always taking the easy way out. And the easy way out is to forget the past, forget the future, forget all of that stuff out there, and just enjoy this present moment. Breathing well, happy, no place to go, nothing to do. This is good enough. And the only thing that I could do would be downhill from there. This is the top. This is it.
Hmm. 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 Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the thing is, you're right. There's always, or not always, I hope, but there's this tendency of yeah, this is right, but what if it could be more than it is? And yeah, no, uh, yeah.
And then, okay, so then the next thought would be then, aha, I see you,
Hmm.
Myra. I see you wanting to get more than this, and this is good enough, haha. All right. So that's the way that we can handle those kind of thoughts. We recognize them for what they are and recognize that we're wanting it to be different than it is, and say, hey, I don't have to want anything right now. It's good enough right now. And that's the new mental attitude. And that requires a change. Does require a
Yes.
change of attitude. Takes a little bit of work to put in. This is right effort. We have to put the right effort into throwing the garbage out.
By the way, the other day we talked about right view, and you said it's more like it's not right view in the sense, here I'm seeing it from this perspective, but it's right viewing. It's an activity. And
Hmm.
what will the difference? Because I've been listening to other of your conversations with other students, and I think I don't really understand the difference between right view and right attitude. Because you also talk about the winner attitude, well, here I am. I'm not going to be bossed around by these feelings or these thoughts. What's the
You're right.
difference?
They are interconnected, but everything starts with right view in the sense of actual observation. All right. And that's especially valuable to look at the kind of thoughts that we're having. Are these hindrances or not? Are these thoughts worth having or not? Can I improve these thoughts? Can I improve my posture? Does my butt hurt, for instance? Okay, we can go around and take an inventory. Okay, that in fact there's an old joke about that, if you don't mind. All
No.
right. It just so happens that a priest, in sitting down in the middle, in coach, took a seat between a rabbi and a Buddhist monk. And so the three of them get into a conversation during the takeoff and whatnot like that. And then later, the plane hits turbulence and the whole plane goes whoomp like that. And the Catholic priest does this. Okay, the circumference of the genuflect, they call it, or something like that. Except that he noticed that the Jewish priest was doing it too. And then he looked at the Buddhist monk, and the Buddhist monk was doing it too. And the priest says, hot dog, this conversation is going really well, isn't it? We're going to convert these two into Catholicism any moment now. And and so he asks the Jewish rabbi, well, what do you mean by doing this? And he says, oh, I was just checking to make sure. And the priest says, sure of what? And he says, well, making sure of spectacles, testicles, watch, and wallet.
And the Buddhist?
And so he turned to the Buddhist and says, "Well, what are you doing?" And the Buddhist priest says, "In times like this, I want to make sure that I'm seeing correctly, that I'm looking for that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm breathing correctly, and that my heart is in the right place."
Yeah, that's a, I liked it.
Okay, so we keep wanting to check things out. Am I seeing correctly? Can I see correctly? That's what we're talking about here. Is we can also get fancy words for it called clairvoyance, clear seeing. But that clear seeing comes from clearly looking. That the example would be Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. I'm sure that you're familiar a little bit with
Yeah.
those kind of stories. Okay, so here uh, Sherlock Holmes waltzes into the crime scene, and Dr. Watson is going along too. And what does Sherlock Holmes do? He takes out his magnifying glass and he starts looking. And he looks 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 while Dr. Watson is musing, I wonder what kind of people lived here and what were the circumstances and all of this kind of stuff. Okay. And then Dr. Watson is absolutely flabbergasted that Sherlock Holmes can figure out what's happening. And Sherlock Holmes is always, no, I was just looking at what was there. Okay, so here's how we live our lives. We go around musing and wondering and doubting and all kinds of stuff in our whole lives when in fact all we really need to do is remember to look and to look and to keep looking and to keep noticing because every moment's a new moment to look. Eventually, we get into looking at how the mind works. Now, as we do that, we get looking and looking and looking and looking. We never quite get a clear picture, but over time, we eventually begin to put all these out of focus pictures together to get a really clear image of what the mind is doing, how it works, etc., like that. And then, if we get to the point of up into the fourth jhana, say, that's when we can see it clearly. But we can take a pretty good look and get a really good understanding of how the mind works before we get into that kind of clear seeing. So this is part of the clear seeing is taking more and more and more and more investigations, more and more looking at it. Just like they do with the stars. If they looked at one star one time, took a photo and thought they knew all about that star, they're not going to learn anything. They keep going back to that star over and over and over again. Okay, so that's how we also do this. This is the repetitive quality: is to keep looking, keep noticing. You could also say that this is what insight means. Where are we going to get insight? This is because we're sighting, and we're really, really into sighting. And because we're into sighting, we're into it, and so we have insight because we're really, really looking. Okay, so. That's the quality that we're looking for, that investigative quality, that inspection, and that we can inspect. Now, as we do, we then decide in that moment whether this is worthwhile having this thought. And so we begin to then purify the thoughts so that all the thoughts are only wholesome. Which means now that all of the mind is wholesome, which means it's functioning correctly, and it's better to see the mind how it functions correctly rather than seeing how it's functioned when it's broken, when it's full of unwholesome thoughts that wind up in dukkha, in attachment, in carrying things around. So this is the value of getting the mind really wholesome, is so that now we can really see what reality is, how the mind becomes the mind, how we actually create the reality that we have, because the closer that the created reality is to actual reality, the less dukkha there's going to be there. And the further away from reality that we get, in our own minds, then the more suffering there is. For instance, that brand new car down at the dealership does not have my desire built in. I add that to it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It's not inherently built in, but yet we think that way. We think, oh, that car is calling me. No, you're calling the car. It'll call you soon enough. After you own it, it'll own you.
yeah.
And so this is the way we begin to think is that, oh, I don't have to go around wanting things. I'm already okay. That I'm
And
just fine without it. In fact, if I do the right investigation, I'll recognize that new car is actually going to be a whole lot more trouble than it's worth.
yeah, 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 for sure. About wholesome and wholesome thoughts, there are. I've noticed there are very clearly unwholesome thoughts, such as, for example, you mentioned desire. When you say, "I want this," that's, yeah. Well, sometimes maybe you don't see it in the moment, but it's like more
Hmm.
or less obvious that that's not very wholesome. But I've not. There are cases that are less clear to me. Sometimes I've noticed I like to talk in my mind a lot. I don't know if it's to feel in control of, I don't know, but I like to talk in my mind a lot, and sometimes it's not clear to me if it's wholesome or unwholesome, because it's not about the desire. It's, I don't know. It's, I suppose it's unwholesome because it's pointless very
Oh,
often,
all right.
but it's
Okay.
not as clear.
So here's the first thing to say about it is that this right view, right noble view, in fact, is a skill to be developed. It has the skilled aspects to be developed in the sense of uh, how clear is the vision, um, and the discernment. So that
Hmm.
in the beginning, we can't tell whether a thought or a deed is wholesome or not. That it's somewhere in the
Hmm.
middle. They're
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely
yeah, yeah.
dead sure for some this is unwholesome. There's absolutely for sure with complete certainty that these thoughts are wholesome. But there is a wide, wide group in the middle that we don't know whether they're wholesome or not. And so the way to look at that would be, can I improve this thought? Can I make it better? Okay, can I turn my unhappiness about the argument I had with Aunt Susie into thinking happy thoughts about Susie? If she's going to be on the mind, let's at least kiss her goodbye, happy to see you, and goodbye now, and out you go, and we won't argue next time, that kind of thing. So we can always improve those thoughts. And as you say, we have a lot of them because we got into the habit of thinking a lot.
Yes.
And what our practice here in Anapanasati is, and this is mentioned in many, many tiny little ways in the suttas, as if everybody understood this inherently, is that the whole quality that we're looking for is to wake up into reality, which is a way of saying to come into the present and be here now in the senses, as opposed to lost in thought, as opposed to being in daydreams that
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
Buddha
yeah.
talks. Okay, so when you're daydreaming, know you're daydreaming. Figure out, is this daydream worth having, or I can come out of a daydream altogether and just enjoy the present moment the way that it is. Why should I have to daydream, right? Mostly we're daydreaming because we're looking for something pleasant to think about.
Yes, yes. I'm very,
And
very used to it. Yeah.
and we're not very good at it. We wind almost always up in thinking about something that we regret. And so having thoughts about the past, that's why we can kind of put them in the category of we can find better things to think about than the past. And right here, right now is good enough. And so that whole quality of the be here now, that whole quality of what the word Buddha means is to wake up. which means to be awake, present, and that awakefulness, that consciousness, is of the environment. Eyes, ears, tongue, taste, bodily sensations, bodily postures, the way the wind is blowing around us. We know our environment in a way that an example would be that it's really hard to sneak up on a monk. Why is that? It's because he's awake. He's not sitting there daydreaming while things sneak up on him. He's going to be there for it, which is, in a way, that's the quality of a martial artist. He's here now. He's awake. He may feel completely safe, but if you walk up behind him at the grocery store, he's going to know you're there.
Yeah.
But Grandma, she's going to be there standing in that place, and you come up behind her, she doesn't have a clue. Oh, how are you? Okay. So this is that quality of wakefulness that we're talking about, of being awake to the fact that you're in a holy place right here. Pay attention. This is what life is right here in front of us. The only thing that's important is this next breath. Let's deal with it wisely. That's the kind of attitude that we begin to develop, so that we're constantly remembering to come back into the present moment rather than lost in daydreams. We can change the kind of words that we have. The first thing that we do, instead of talking to ourselves about the past, the future, or whatever we can dream up, we talk to ourselves about what we're actually experiencing. Okay, an example of that was back in the 1930s, before they had television, they had radio, and they would have a lot of sports on the radio. How can you have a sport on the radio, a boxing? The answer is what they call a blow-by-blow description. But this is, in fact, what the Mahasi method is often teaching, is let's do a blow-by-blow description of everything that's happening, because that'll keep the thoughts in this present moment for a while. But then that can be too much of a habit. We wind up not shutting up when it's time to just look and not talk. But the whole quality is that, yes, we can do some blow by blow. Wow, this is a good breath. Oh, this feels so good. You know, that kind of blow by blow description, everything that touches us, we can have a wholesome thought about that.
Just to clarify, yeah, because I have personally tried the Mahasi method twice, and it was not successful for me. So I at least I don't have the habit of noting. It's nothing I've really done, because no, I don't know. I fell into more mistakes related to focus on the breath, like just that single focus, than noting and those things, because I didn't. I don't know.
I know, but that's why the students get so tired.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but the way that we're practicing here, we don't get tired because we're not putting in that wrong kind of effort and not feeling well. No, we're really paying attention to how we feel right now, paying close attention and enjoying the heck out of it. I mean, what else are we going to do? That's where the gladdening of the mind, the brightening of the mind comes from, as well as the putting positive, wholesome thoughts, put that positive spin on everything. And when we do that, we can't help but feel better.
Yeah, I've seen it. So I didn't believe it at first, but yeah, it's actually true.
All right. Well, let's finish now. I think that we've got quite a lot done. This is a good point.
Yes.
And so go enjoy your moment.
Yes. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation. It was very helpful.
I know, even for me.
I'm glad.
See you later.
Okay.